Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Syed Jaffrey and today we will be talking about PowerApps and the Sharepoint list. So many people were asking me how we can load the data from Sharepoint list into PowerApps, which is pretty straightforward, but there are some limitations. So on the Sharepoint list, you can load 5,000 rows. On the PowerApps, there is a data row limit where you can load 500 rows or you can go max to 2,000. So how we can work on the SharePoint list and the Power Apps where if we have a more than 5,000 rows in our SharePoint list, so how we can manage that in the Power Apps. So let's see how it's going to work and we start working together to figure that out. But before we start, we forget something. What we forget? Yes, we forget intro. Okay, so let's start and we will pull the data from SharePoint list. So I already have a SharePoint list. The SharePoint list name is financial sample and I do have a number of records which is more than 5,000. So if I show you here index key and an ID. So ID is auto-generated number in the SharePoint list, but I did create a separate column which is called index key, and the reason is that I want to keep my number in the sequence in order to pull the number of records. It's a best practice for the performance also that you pull the data that is only you need it. So if you have a 7,000, 10,000 rows, doesn't mean that you have to pull all 10,000 rows. Apply the filter and reduce the number of records and just limit it. So for example, if you're working and you're going to pull the data for today or for this week, just try to filter that data. Don't pull because it's going to impact the performance. So when I created an index key, it's just not only the column, I create the index as well. So I'll show you how I did it. So go to the list settings. And so even though if you notice here, when I pull this settings, it says 5,600 items list view threshold is 5,000, right? So there is a threshold and I already have a 5,600 rows. So the index I created, I keep the name also the index key. You can give any other name. You can the sequence number or something. And I created an index. So I can create I create one index, and I do have that. I can create one of maximum 20. So and how you create it, you just go create an index. And once you select, and then you have to provide the column name. So you already have all the columns that you can create an index. So I created on this column. I'm going to cancel this one. Okay, so now we'll go back to our Power Apps where we will pull the data of this financial sample, 5,600 rows. So I will first use the gallery in Power Apps. So let's go to the Power Apps. I'm going to create a new Canvas app, but before I'm creating a new, I already have one template. I'm going to use this template. So I will open this template and save as a file name that I'm going to use it for my application. Okay, so the file is open. I do have just the header on top, whereas the logo and the title and the picture of whoever is logged in. So I will save as financial sample and save. So first I will show you that how I can pull the data from SharePoint and how the SharePoint list get handled in the Power Apps. And I don't have to do anything, but threshold is going to stop at the threshold. So I will insert a gallery here. So before I insert a gallery, I'm going to bring my SharePoint list and go to the view, data sources, and data. I'll provide the name SharePoint and it's asking me the location. So it's going to pull existing one. It's already exists on the digital files, and it was financial sample. It's here. I'm going to connect. Now the SharePoint list is connected to the Power Apps. I will insert the gallery. Go insert, use the vertical one. And I will just choose some filter here. Okay, I'm gonna change the layout. I don't need the image one. So let's go back to the gallery and I will use the, so let's use title and subtitle one. Make it this one a little smaller. Column, gonna move this one on the top here. So I have 2 rows. I'll reduce the size, as 20 is too much. 11 and 11, and the form's open sans, so I'm gonna use this. Okay, so font is same, but it's bold. I'm gonna make it regular, normal. Okay, move it on the top, move it on the top. Okay, I don't need this one. Remove it. I'll make it the smaller size so I can have more rows. Now we'll define the data source. So the data source, I will directly point it to the SharePoint list, which is the financial sample. Financial sample. Okay, so I have a column. So column name is title, and the second column is a country. I'll bring a couple more columns here. I'll Control C and Control V. Just paste it as well. I'm going to change the name again for this one. Another copy paste. And another copy paste. I'll do another one. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. So I'll change the title of this one. So let's say what we can bring. So we already have title, country, product, and units sold. I'll change this one to product, and this one is units sold, and I'll pick price and the amount. So price is sale price, and I'll put the sales amount. Reduce the column size. Sales price. I'll put this one the sale amount, so which is just sales. Okay, so I have these columns. I'm just gonna put the labels on top quickly. So this is that I can say title or segment actually, and I'm gonna use the I'll make it this one bold, and I will just copy paste. So the segment was a country. Okay, first I will paste all, and then I'm gonna change the name. Okay, just putting the headers quickly, just make it a little nicer here. So this one is the product, and this one is the unit sold. Next one is the unit price, or it's a quantity, so units. So first one was the sale unit sold and the sale price. Okay, so this one is sale price, and the last one is the amount. Okay, so we have these columns. Now let's find out that how many rows we have here in our. So I'm gonna put one more label here, and I'll say total rows. Let's find out what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna concatenate, and I'll do count rows of gallery. My gallery name is gallery 1, all items. Okay, so when we load the data in PowerApps from SharePoint, it loads 100 rows, and it's automatically calculates. So when I'll run this application and scroll it down, it's going to keep loading. So if you notice that it's going to keep changing. So it's 100 rows right now. Once I move, it's 200, and since I will keep moving, it will keep adding the number of rows. So let's see where it goes. So I'm just gonna go, and then I'll come back when it reaches to the last row, and we'll see where we are. Okay, so I have reached to 4800 rows by keep scrolling this one. So if I go further, let's see, the threshold is 5000, so it should stop at 5000. If it's not, we'll see. So it's 4800 is already loaded. Now it should load 100 more, which should go to the 4900. Okay, and the next batch should more 100, so 5000. So we reach to the 5000 rows. Let's see if I keep scrolling down so it exceed or not. Okay, so it's exceeded. It goes 5100. Let's see how further it goes. Keep scrolling. 5200, 5300, and it's loaded 5300, and it stopped. So I total have 5600. It still reached to 5300, which is interesting. So let's see what happened. I do have an index key, which is the sequence number. So let's see if I put the sequence number here, and I'll change the name of this column as well to say it's a country. So I'm going to change this column name to country. Okay, so if you notice that there is an error message, so let's see what happened here. I'm going to change the name first. So it's a country. It's total 5300 rows loaded, and I got an error message. It says the request operation is invalid. Server response financial sample failed. The attempt operation is prohibited because it exceeds the list view threshold. So it does says that gallery loaded 5300. I got an error message. Let's put the index key column here and find out that how many rows do I have. So if I'll say Control C and a Control V, creating another column here. So it's just gonna bring the name is the column, it's called index key. Okay. And let's see, so it's 5300. I did get an error message, but I want to see that how many rows showing at the last key here. So it did load 5300. So even though it's exceeded from the threshold, which is really interesting, but we did get an error message. So the best practice is that we should apply the filter here rather than pull all the data. So our goal is to create a gallery where we can load all 5600 rows without having any error message. And we are not going to use the gallery feature that it's going to load 100 records whenever we scroll it down. So what we will do, I'm going to create a copy of this, or to make it duplicate screen of the existing one, and I will load the data in a partially into the collection. So I'll change the name of this load partial data screen. And what I will do here, instead of using the direct SharePoint list, I will use the collection here. So let's say if I write here collection partial load, it will give me the error message because there is no collection exist, and I will use the collection at the time when my screen is going to be loaded or is going to be visible. So on visible, I will write it here, clear collect. So clear collect function, clear the existing SharePoint, the collection, sorry, not the SharePoint, the existing collection, and load the fresh data into there. And I'm gonna say partial. So whenever my screen will open or load, it's gonna clear the existing collection, whatever the data in the existing collection, and load the fresh data. Partial load, and I will be loading the financial sample into here. Okay. Now, whenever I will load this one, it's gonna load the first 500 set of records. So in this case, let's see what is here. We are using a gallery item here, and we already assigned the call partial load here. So just want to make sure that the name is correct, and we put it on visible of this screen that load this collection. So I just want to match the name is correct. Yep, so that's the same name we're using it. And let's run this application. So there is an error message, and that was the error message I think for the previous gallery where we had exceeded the threshold. So let's go back. Yeah, so let's run this application, and I'm going to use so if I'll click on this screen, it's gonna start loading the data because I wrote on visible that collect into this collection from financial sample. And if you notice that there is only 500 rows were loaded. So our goal is to load all 5,600 rows. So what I'm going to do in this case, I will put a button here where if you normally notice that when you go to the Microsoft any either where there's a list of too many rows available, there is a button at the bottom. It says load more. So we're going to use the same concept, and we will insert a button here at the bottom, and we're just going to say here on the text load more. Okay, and when we will click this button, it's going to keep loading the data until it's reached to the maximum limit. Okay, so the button is here. We are loading first set of 500 records into the gallery, and now we have to identify that how many rows do we have in our SharePoint list. So like by going and looking into here, I can see, okay, 5,600 rows, but how the application will know. So we have to get the latest or the last number of our index key to identify that how many rows we have. And how we can do that, so we'll go back to the application where the application is start. So we will find out the last record number or the index number, or you can say any sequence number, whatever the column you want to set, that what is the last value. So I will store that value into one variable, and I'm going to use the set function. Set function is store the values of either it's a record or a variable, either a column you can store into a variable. So let's say var last number, and I need to find out the, so I'm going to use a first function which is going to give me the first record, or I can get the specific column as well. And I will sort my SharePoint list, which is the financial sample, and I'm gonna sort it by the index key, and I will sort it descending. So which is gonna give me the, so if I'll sort it descending, the first row is gonna be the last number. Okay, so I pick descending, and then I'm gonna get an index key, and I will get one more time for my, so this one is going to give me the whole row, and I need the index key column only to store the var last number here. So I'm going to use again index key, and it's close. So if I'll run this one, I can see what is my last number. So if I'll run this on start, and if I want to see what is stored in my last number, I can go to the file and the variables. So if you notice that it's the last number is 5,600, so now we know that we have total 5,600 rows. So then the next step, what we're going to do when we hit load more, it's going to keep loading until it's reached to 5,600. Okay, so in order to do that, I have to write a command here on select of this button, that what we have to do, we're going to load further records. So we already have 500, we're going to load more 500. So I'll write it here that collect. The reason I'm using collect here, if I will use clear collect, it's going to clear all the data and load the last set of the data. So if I'm using collect, it's going to append, not clear. So I'm going to use collect, and I will use the same collection that I used for the first time, which is my called partial load. And what I will do here, I'm going to use the filter of my financial sample SharePoint list. And what I'm going to filter here, that the index key, so right now my index key is 500, so I'm going to use the index key is greater than, I'm going to count the rows of my gallery, count rows of gallery, So this is gallery 1 underscore 1. Gallery 1 is for my previous screen. So gallery need only one bracket, not two. Gallery 1, and I'm going to find how many rows we have. All items, and I'm gonna second condition. So what I'm looking for, that my index key is greater than. So filter the data for my financial sample where my index key is greater than of count rows. So how many we have in the count rows right now? We have 500 rows in the count rows, and my index key column is less than, again, count rows of the gallery item dot all items, and at 501 records. So I can say less than equal to 500, or I can just put less than 500 plus. So I'm adding 500 records into my collection, and I'm just filtering from my SharePoint list from within the range. So the bracket is closed for the count, and I'm going to close the bracket for the collection. So now it's going to collect 500. Whenever I click button, it's going to pull the 500 set of records. So let's see, run this application and check. So I have a 500 rows right now in my list also here, and because I'm using the collection now, so it shouldn't be loading more 100 sets gallery, because if I connect it to the SharePoint list directly, then it's going to load 100 sets of record, but I'm connecting to the collection, so that is in my control now, or in through the button I can control. So let's see what is the last record here. Okay, slow. So it's 500. Now total rows are 500. I'm going to click load more, and it should go to 1000 right now because I loaded 500 more records. So if you notice, this total rows are 1000, and if I keep going here, it's 1000 row loaded. So if I keep clicking here, 5500, keep adding. Now we have 1500s. Now we have 2000 rows. We keep loading 2500, 3000. So in this way, we are not impacting the performance of our application. Otherwise, if you load all 5600 in one time, it may impact your application performance, and it start freezing at the start, and maybe stakeholders doesn't like that. And it does happen normally when if you have a lot of data and loading in at once. So if you notice, we reached to the 5000, and now we are on 5500, and if you load more, it's gonna reach to 5600, which is the maximum records. If I scroll it down and see the last record here, so 5294, 5511, and 5600. So we all have 5600 rows. My load more button is still there, so if I click again, nothing's gonna happen because it's gonna keep trying to load the next filter record, but there is nothing, so it's not going to do anything. So what we will do, we will hide this button, or we can disable it if you don't have any data. So for do that, what I will do, I'll just go on this button, I'll put on visible. So on select, we are pulling a data of 500 sets of record, and once we all loaded all, I can go to on visible. So visible, right now it's true, but I will apply a condition that, okay, if my var last number is less than or equal to count rows, which is my gallery item, and my last number variable is 5600 value, and I'm going to check the count rows of gallery 1 dot all items. Okay, so if it's less than or equal to, then make it false, otherwise make it true. Okay, so if you notice that the button is disappeared because we already reached to. So if I will go back and run this application again, so it will start again 500, and you will notice that button is there. So let's do it quickly. I'm just gonna go run the app again from start. Okay, one thing I'm gonna do it before I'm doing on start, I will do the clear of the collection, because my collection is already have a data, and I have a collect function over there. So collect is going to keep appending, so I have to clear the collection on the load of the application. So let's do run on start. It will wipe out all the data, and then I'm gonna go to this partial load data screen because it's gonna be visible, so it should start loading the data. If I go here and then click on this one, so on visible it should start 500 rows. So here you go, it's loaded 500. I can run the application or I can do it directly from here. So if you notice 1000 records, keep loading, 1500, 2000, 2500, 3000, and it's keep going. So once it's reached to 5600, the button will be invisible. So then nobody will again click again and again. So they will know that we have reached to the final set of record. Okay, and then the button is gone. So this is how we can load all the data into our collection and use. But again, I said the best practice and for the performance, try to use the filters as much as you can to reduce the number of rows. So hope you will like this video. Please like and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.